Here's a question for you: Is the Magic Valley growing too fast? Speaking of government, should government step in and impose some more controls on the rate of growth? Two things come to mind. Why I bring this up this morning? I've been hearing a lot from people, and it's not just on air, but when I'm out at various places, whether it be shopping or at various events we've been hosting at the radio station the last couple of weeks. I hear from a lot of people that they're a little concerned about the rapid rate of growth because, of course, if things grow really, really fast and you end up going from a more rural type of lifestyle to a more suburbanized or even urbanized lifestyle, you are going to see more of those problems associated urban style crime, or you'll see more of it. I remember years ago, I was driving down a highway listening to a radio program, and for years, American liberals said that America should be more like the Canadian city of Toronto. But then Toronto grew from being an old provincial town to a metropolitan area of about 6 million, and they suddenly developed crime. They didn't have a lot of it beforehand, not like every other major metropolitan area. In fact, the late mayor of that city committed some himself. It was on videotape, come to think of it. 944, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and News Radio 1310.com. So I've been hearing from these people saying that they were happier when Twin Falls was a city of 20 to 25,000 and that you didn't have to go very far just to find the rolling hills and out into the desert. But they look at these housing developments going up and they think that's an abomination. I also ran into a fellow at an event Friday night, and he stopped me and he said, "I think your newspaper column is way too long." And if you're a regular reader of the newspaper, you know that on Tuesdays, generally most Tuesdays, I have a column that appears in print where I sort of topics, but I admit that there's no real focus on it. It just goes from topic. It's not like reading a series of installments. The topics do vary widely. But it struck me that when he said this to me, he's probably 75 years old. I thought he was in the reading demographic. Younger people don't do a lot of reading anymore because they have, video games, television, music, and the like. They learn differently than we did. They don't read anywhere near as much. It's become a much more visual culture for storytelling. So to sit down and read the printed word, people aren't doing that nearly as much. But apparently, even older people don't do it nearly as much. But what I did in that column today, I reflected upon the growth that we're seeing here versus what it was like. We all have fond memories of our own childhood, and we look back on it, and my world seemed perfect up until I was about 10 years old, and the sights and sounds of it just were of such great appeal. But as I've gotten older, I look back now and I realize, well, by the time you're 10 years old, you start getting more homework. I didn't have homework before I was 10. We didn't have homework in the third and fourth grade. I didn't see homework until about the fifth grade. So then all of a sudden, after school, you had things to do other than just a few chores around the house and running around in the neighborhood with your friends. You actually had to sit down and you had to do some writing and some reading when you got home. By the time I got to high school, that had increased exponentially, and I had football practice and other things I had to do. And then there was college where I was expected to actually do a lot of reading and do a lot of studying and try to make good grades. And then all of a sudden you're in the working world for good. And your demands are get up out of bed early in the morning, uh, come in and show up every day. And if you do your job well, you can hold on to your job. But I've also been in a business that has been a little bit on the whole media business has been in flux ever since I've gotten involved. I've been in the media business now for 31 years. And let me tell you, it has been a time of rapid change. And sometimes it is not comfortable to be in this business, especially when you're between jobs because of that rapid change. So I guess I look back on that period of my life that seems like it lasted forever until you're 10 years old, where you could go swimming every summer day. In the wintertime, you could go sledding every day. And there were these places that your parents would take you that are long gone, that were either bulldozed or they burned down or they blew over. But it really was more about the people you knew. And I think part of the problem as we grow older and we don't like to change, whether the city gets bigger or not. We don't like to change, but a lot of that happens to be that life is not as complicated or was not as complicated when we were kids for obvious reasons. We were kids. And number two, a lot of the things you really miss are the people that are no longer with us. Your parents, maybe, if they're gone, siblings, friends, because as obviously you grow older, they start to drop, and there are fewer of them. So I was trying to make that point, but I was also trying to point out that where I grew up, there is no economic growth. I mean, it is just dreadful to go there anymore and see what the place looks like. And when I was a kid, there were still factories open. Everybody who wanted a job had a job. So my friends at school, their parents all were working. People went on long vacations. My parents were just working class people, but my dad bought a new car every other year. And we always had a vacation during the summer. Those are things a lot of people don't have anymore in that part of the country, maybe not even in this part of the country. But the difference is when I drive down the street here, I don't have to go very far, and I see somebody building something. I drive down Park Avenue and I make a right turn onto South Washington Street. And as I drive into downtown Twin Falls, there's construction going on. There's new buildings going up left and right. And it's that way all across town. Where I grew up, in contrast, if there's a building that gets demolished, it stays empty. The spot stays empty. They come in, they throw some asphalt down, call it an urban park, maybe put up a few bricks and a couple of benches to try to dress it up, gussy it up a little bit, to try to convince people that things aren't all lost. But as well, a lot of times I drive through small towns here and I see empty storefronts. Well, where I grew up, those stores just get demolished or they burn down and nothing replaces them. They would long for a little of the growth that is going on in the Twin Falls area. And I sometimes think that, yes, it is when I'm stuck in traffic, whether it be on Blue Lakes Boulevard or I'm waiting for a light on South Washington Street, it can be a little annoying sometimes. Yesterday I was driving home and there was an 18-wheeler ahead of me, and the 18-wheeler, when they leave the red light, when the light turns green, it takes an 18-wheeler quite a bit of time to get speed back up. So you're hitting every red light red because of that. And it seems very frustrating, and that's part of the growth that we're dealing with. But I think in the long run, the fact that you get better hospitals and you get better options for shopping, and there's a plus side to all of this, too, that often gets overlooked. 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Telephone number for reaching the show is 736-0300. Caller, you're on the air. You're up next.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, I grew up in Twin Falls, and I've been here a resident for closer part of 30 years already. And there, as much as I don't agree with everything the city council and the city planners do with Twin Falls, it's still a great place to live. There's so much to do, but yet there's so little to do at the same time, depending on what your hobbies and activities are. And one of the biggest problems I see for Twin Falls, and like you just mentioned, is the traffic problem. And it's kind of an inevitable thing that you have to deal with in Twin Falls because the way it's laid out now, it's kind of there's very few ways to get in and out of Twin Falls and to get around Twin Falls.
That's because of the big ditch on the north end. I mean, that obviously...
Yeah, it kind of creates a little bit of a problem. The one thing, and this might be a thing of the past, but to me, I'd like to see Twin Falls get some bigger parks, more parks, putting in a drainage pond in a subdivision and dedicating it to somebody does not constitute, in my mind, as a park to go out and have fun and recreate at. And you look at some of the parks the city of Boise has, and they're just amazing. 20-acre, 30-acre parks, just huge with all these different activities. And Twin Falls, they're eventually going to get that big. They're not that big right now, obviously. But there's still a lot of stuff to do in Twin Falls. It's a great place to live. Just get out and enjoy it. Welcome change with an open heart, I guess.
Well said, and thank you for the call. I'll get to my next caller. Caller, hold on, be patient for just a moment. I think that that the one thing, it's a very comfortable place to live. That is, I don't see a lot of stress, even though I sometimes get annoyed having to wait for a red light or for heavy traffic on a couple of the streets. If that's the biggest stress I have every day, I shouldn't be complaining. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Hey, Bill, this is an excellent show as always. I grew up in San Diego, and I remember the town I lived in was 200 plus thousand, and that was 20 years ago. You go back now, and it takes 30 minutes to get onto the damn freeway. I mean, if you look around Twin Falls, you can't. You have to be blind to see what's happening. The farmers are. We have an aging farming population. Who's taking over these farms? And you can see these farms down pole line, just one after another, up for sale, up for sale. Another farmer's not going to come in. They're going to be sold. They're going to be developed. I mean, growth is something that's going to happen. I think there should be a master plan. And sometimes I don't think the city fathers have know what the hell they're doing. They're just, things are going up, and we can't even take care of the infrastructure that we have, you know?
I had an uncle who moved in 1955, he moved to Escondido. Population was 24,000. He came back home to visit. I was a junior in high school in 1979. And he said, there's 90,000 people there now. And he said, I can't get around any longer. And it was that type of growth. It was so rapid and so fast that it changed the whole nature of the place.
Yeah, and that's what happens. And it's going to happen here. Eventually, Twin Falls is not going to stay small, you know. Do I wish it was small and that you could just drive and in 5 minutes you're across town? Yeah, but that's unrealistic. You know, if that's what a person really wants in life, then maybe they need to start looking somewhere else to live. You
Yeah,
know?
well said. There are places like Cary, which is very nice. I was telling somebody the other day, if I were to retire, I'd like to pick somewhere like Swan Valley. It's cold, but you don't have any traffic lights, easy to get around. 954, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, I love your show, and here's the problem. You'll like this. I'm from the Finger Lakes area. My son's in the Army, 10th Mountain there in Watertown. I was born in Governor, New York.
Yeah.
I lived here in Twin Falls the last 30 years. Wonderful, and the growth has been tremendous. And I grew up, the other caller called, in central Orange County, when you could count the orange trees, drive down the streets on your bicycle, and live to be 100. Now you're dead the first day you venture past the sidewalk. Beautiful areas, beautiful parts of the country. Consider yourselves lucky because I run back east. I'm in the trucking business. I go every week back and forth to Gloucester, Mass. Upstate New York, where Bill talks about, is so dead and he's so beautiful. There's nothing going on up there. And everything north of New Jersey is moving south to the Carolinas and on to Florida and South Carolina. And that's where all the trade's going. That's where all the business is going. So consider Twin Falls a win-win-win situation. And I put in for some economic development money here to help Twin Falls and New York and Michigan and several spots. And with a little luck, I'll be able to do that. But he's right. Just bear with the trucks. We're doing the best we can. I promise. I don't want to be at the tread lights. I remember when pole line was almost dirt. I'm serious. Everybody laughed. It was Costco. The only thing in the corner where the mall was a big tree.
Well, back in the Mohawk Valley area, they're going to go back to dirt roads. They can't afford to pave them anymore.
Well, let me tell you a secret up there. That's exactly what it is up there. Those 10th Mountain guys can come down here. They'll figure something out, you know. And as you know, Syracuse, I know every inch of where you were, you know. We need to go to Pack and Save, and what's the other big store now? They just got bought out, too. I forget now. Oh, produce up there. Oh, Idaho potatoes up there, by the way. So you guys can't point any fingers because a lot of potatoes and a lot of onions, a lot of French fries go up there.
Yeah, yeah.
And that area is just gorgeous, and you're 120% right. You know, one of these days I have to come over and have a cup of coffee with you because you'll laugh. And we're exactly alike. You're 4 years younger than me, but the same difference is everybody smile and go with it because you'll be happy you did 10 years from now because all good things come to an end. That was my grandmother. And then my grandma's favorite other line in the whole world. You love this little political shot. These politicians have been trying to do your grandfather and me one better since Woodrow Wilson.
Well, thank you. Thank you much for the telephone call this morning. We're coming up on 9:57. It's 67. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. That's the problem in some parts of the country where, and the governments have just wrung people dry when it comes to high taxes and the like. And the caller coming from that portion of upstate New York, which is, if you read the book Last of the Mohicans, that's set in that area. And to drive through there today, it is just stunningly beautiful. But that's it. It's being depopulated. I read a commentary not long ago where somebody said, liberals don't care. They see it as a tourist colony. That's where they're going to go on vacation, and they think you're just the background to please them. the fact that you can't make a living is irrelevant to them. You can wait on them when they come and actually have their vacations. It, and some of these places are, and Pat Buchanan makes a comment in his column today, places like Illinois and Connecticut, even Puerto Rico, which are going bankrupt and expect everybody else to pay for them. He points out, he said, this country used to build interstate highway systems and send rockets to the moon. But by the time we're done bailing everybody out in some of these places in the country where they were so mismanaged, fat chance of that happening. 9:58. We've got to take a break. News is coming up in just a few minutes from Fox. Also, Rush Limbaugh following Fox News. God willing, at the Creek don't rise, they'll allow me to come back and do this all over again tomorrow morning between 8 and 10 o'clock. Bill Cawley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com.